Voice. Either had to choose, some geriatric who can't fulfill his promises.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. We're going to be doing coverage of the inauguration ceremony. I struggled in terms of whether to cover this one way or the other. At the end of the day, I opted to cover this for two reasons. One, I cover the news, and if ever there was a newsworthy event, it's an inauguration. So I think that unto itself is probably enough of a reason. But two, I think this is a big lesson that we have to take out of the last, 4 years, 8 years, and that is not to cede ground to the right. The right will be hosting inauguration live streams. The right is going to be covering this. I would rather get people to watch my coverage than to watch coverage from the right. Why the left thinks that if we pretend something isn't happening, it will suddenly come to be that thing didn't happen is beyond me. The inauguration is happening. People can either watch it on left-wing channels or they can watch it on right-wing channels. I host a left-wing channel. My job is persuasion. It is to get people who are watching right now to understand the importance of our agenda, to understand the importance of being able to push back against this stuff, the importance of being able to hold Trump accountable. I would rather get people who are going to watch this invariably anyway to watch it with my coverage than they would to watch it on either a neutral station, completely neutral station, or a right-wing station. So that's the reality of why I opted to do this coverage here today. I know that there are folks out there who are watching who don't want any coverage to happen. That's fine. It's your prerogative. You don't have to watch any coverage. You're absolutely 100% welcome to tune this off, and I understand. And if I didn't work in politics, I would probably not be too far off. But I think from my vantage, knowing how few left of center or progressive channels there are on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, all across social media, I think it is important not to cede ground to the right, not to lose audience to other networks who are perfectly content to take to take left-wing channels' disappearance and fill that void. So that's why I'm doing this coverage today. I think it is important not to lose audience, not to voluntarily cede audience to folks who would be perfectly content to take that audience and put their right-wing spin on it. I think that it is important to cover this stuff and to make sure that we have our voices heard in this environment. Look, in large part, that is the problem with right-wing media. Democrats have largely decided to cede that ground completely to the right out of fear for validating Fox News, out of fear for validating Breitbart and the Daily Wire. Guess what? They've got millions and millions and millions of viewers. Those networks are validated. That ship has sailed. The toothpaste is out of the tube. So at this point, I think it's more important to make sure that we are not giving up more ground, and especially in the beginning of the Trump era, basically allowing right-wing voices to dominate the conversation, to dominate the narrative. So as much as I don't want to be live streaming my thoughts watching Donald Trump take the oath of office, as much as I'm sure some folks who are watching don't want to see this stuff, the reality is that there are a lot of people out there who are not avowed Democrats and who are going to start to build their political worldview, their political ideology from the coverage that they listen to. If I was to come on and say, hey, I'm not going to cover this today, I'll just leave it up to the right-wing channels of the world to take it from here. Well, that begins the process of informing the worldview of a lot of folks who are tuning into social media today and want to see what's happening and are going to begin to create their political ideology based on what they hear. And so would you rather have me not cover this, not offer some input in terms of political ideology, in terms of political worldview, out of deference for, okay, this is not a happy event and so we're not going to cover it? Or would you rather those folks who are tuning in good faith, by the way, who want to see this stuff, get a sense of what I have to say as somebody who cares about progressivism as we head into the Trump era? I would presume it would be the latter. It's your prerogative not to tune in if this isn't something that you want to see. I completely understand, and would recommend, even if people are watching, that if it's not something that you're able to handle, completely understand. We'll be here when you come back. But that is a little bit of my rationale for covering this today. So, of course, this is happening inside. The talking point put forward by Trump was that he didn't want to have an outdoor ceremony because the weather was going to be too cold. This wouldn't be the coldest inauguration by far, and he also said that there were severe record lows. We're about 40 degrees off in Washington, D.C. today from severe record lows. There were also the inaugurations of Harry Truman, not Harry Truman, FDR, Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, all of which took place outside. Barack Obama's just in 2009. Of course, we saw the very, very, very famous side-by-sides of Trump's inauguration in 2017 and Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009. And there was no comparison between the two. Trump very clearly was trying to avoid the optics of a sparsely attended inauguration ceremony, and that is why this thing was moved inside. Not because it's dangerously cold or there are record lows. Again, there have been inaugurations that were just as cold as this one. This was more for the fact that he didn't want to deal right off the bat with the comparisons of him and Obama.
In Silver Spring, Maryland, Independent Line.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
I do want to cover some of the executive orders that we can be expected to see. There was just reporting of a raft of executive orders that Donald Trump is going to hand down within his first hours in office. This is reporting from the New York Times. Let's see if we can get this on the screen here. Some executive orders we can be expected to see. As it relates to the border, Trump is going to close the border to asylum-seeking migrants and end asylum and birthright citizenship. I don't know that he'll have the power to do that because that's in the Constitution. Of course, this will be challenged. It'll head up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we'll get an indication of how deferential this Supreme Court is going to be to Trump as he tries to pass overtly unconstitutional executive orders and actions here. He seeks to involve the U.S. military in border security. Again, unclear as to the legality of this move, as we're not sure whether the U.S. military can be deployed inside of the United States. Again, that will be a test for the U.S. Supreme Court to either stand up to Trump or show complete deference to him. He's seeking to declare migrant crossings along the U.S.-Mexico border a national emergency. That would allow him to unlock federal funding for border wall construction, and he won't need Congress to do it. Of course, it's worth noting that in his first term, while he beats his chest about having built the border wall, that in reality, he was able to build 52 miles of wall, so not exactly what he had promised his voters when they voted him in. This idea of building wall along the entirety of the southern border. We got 50 miles of wall, and that was it. Finally, he wants to designate drug cartels as global terrorists. With regard to the federal workforce, he wants to end remote policies and force folks to come in back to the office, in-person work for 5 days a week. With regard to DEI, gender diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, establish biological sex definitions for federal workers, and remove protections for trans folks in federal prisons, remove protections for trans migrants in U.S. custody. With regard to tariffs and trade, he wants to direct federal agencies to begin an investigation into trade practices, including trade deficits, which I'll get to in a moment, unfair currency practices, counterfeit goods, and a special exemption that allows low-value goods to come to the United States tariff-free. This idea that trade deficits are inherently bad is so bizarre. Like, we have a trade deficit with Canada, but Canada has a population 1/10 of what we are, 1/9 of what we have in the United States. And so why does there need to be completely equal trade? It's very bizarre. If Canada doesn't have all of the goods and services we need, we don't just need to arbitrarily say that they have to send us more. We buy what we need, they buy what they need. It's okay to have trade deficits. They are not inherently good or bad. With regard to energy and the environment, declare a national emergency, energy emergency, which would allow Trump to unlock powers to permit pipelines and power plants. So the clean energy the clean energy revolution will be put on hold in deference to Donald Trump's efforts to basically kowtow to the fossil fuel industry. Order the federal government to roll back regulations that impede domestic energy production. I should remind everybody that we have the most oil being produced right now of any other time in the history of the world. So again, this idea that's being perpetuated by a lot of right-wingers that, like, Joe Biden and the Democrats have hampered energy production is completely backwards. There is quite literally nothing to back up that notion. I should probably scroll along with as we go here. Assess China's compliance with the trade deal that Trump signed in 2020, as well as the USMCA, which Trump signed in 2020 to replace NAFTA, which was effectively just NAFTA again. Order the government to assess the feasibility of creating an external revenue service to collect tariffs and duties. We have that. It's the Customs and Border Protection, but maybe Doge in their duties of eliminating government waste can let Donald Trump know that redundant agencies are probably an example of exactly the type of government waste that he's seeking to eliminate. Energy and the environment. Here we go. Declare a national energy emergency, which I've already done that. Yeah. Signal an intention to loosen the limits on tailpipe pollution and fuel economy standards. I don't know who's asking for worse fuel economy standards and more tailpipe pollution, but apparently there are enough lobbyists that have made their way to Donald Trump that this is what they're seeking to do right now. Open the Alaska wilderness to more oil and gas drilling. Again, we have record gas drilling right now. The notion that we need to do more to the detriment of the economy, again, backwards, and eliminate environmental justice programs across the government. Finally, he's seeking to delay the ban on TikTok, which I should remind people is in place because of Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump signed an executive order in 2020 that expressly sought to ban TikTok. He has numerous video clips floating around where he's expressed his willingness and his need, basically, to make sure that TikTok is banned. And yet, this is what he does: create a problem, swoop in to fix a problem of his own creation, and then hail himself as some hero for doing it. The whole thing on TikTok kind of blew my mind because it was really just one more example of some orchestrated drama by Xu appealing to Trump's ego to present him as some white knight for swooping in and saving TikTok, disregarding the fact that the reason that there was a TikTok ban to begin with was Donald Trump himself. And yet he was so desperate to bend the knee and curry favor with Trump, like the rest of these tech bro oligarchs, that all he sought to do was completely ignore the past, completely ignore the fact And it was a fact that Donald Trump was the person who signed an executive order in 2020 banning TikTok, and instead just heap praise onto Trump, heap effusive praise, and shower him with exactly the kind of compliments that he wants, stay in his good graces, knowing full well that if he did that, Trump would go back on his word and be the person who actually protects TikTok at the end of the day. And that's exactly what he did. So Trump. It was a coup for Trump in the sense that he was able to present himself as some savior for TikTok and Gen Z's favorite app. Shu was able to get what he wants because he knows that all you got to do is dangle a little praise for Trump and he'll become your lap boy and do whatever he needs to actually protect TikTok at the end of the day. So everybody got what they needed in this situation. Again, Trump got the praise he needs so that he can get a PR win. Shu, by virtue of praising him, knowing full well that Trump is going to take the bait, got exactly what he wants because now Trump is indeed going to turn around and protect TikTok. He's already seeking to delay the implementation of the ban, and he's already announced that he won't enforce it. So everybody wins except the American people, who are misled into thinking that Donald Trump was always some savior here, some white knight here, when in reality it's very clear that he was responsible for this from the very beginning.
You're going to see the Chief Justice, John Roberts, issue the oath of office for the president-elect for him to take. And then after that, the vice president taking his oath, being sworn in by Justice Kavanaugh. Vice president sworn in by Justice Kavanaugh.
So we're about a little less than an hour out here. Again, this is the first inauguration to be held indoors since 1985. Trump will take office here, be inaugurated here, indoors because he didn't want the optics of a sparsely attended event on the National Mall. And yet he did it under the pretense of the weather being dangerously cold for those who were watching outside. Again, this is not dangerously cold. This is not even unseasonably cold. This is pretty standard fare for a presidential inauguration. Obama had an inauguration with similar temperatures. Jimmy Carter had an inauguration with similar temperatures. I believe FDR had an inauguration with similar temperatures. And so again, nothing really out of the norm here, other than the fact that we have a thin-skinned president-elect who is hell-bent on making sure that he doesn't get any optics of a poorly attended event so that he can be compared to Barack Obama yet again. All right. In the meantime, while we are waiting here, I'm happy to take some questions if you want to throw them in the chat. This is a great point too. What the Bills game was, the Bills game was a lot warmer than 25 degrees. 12 degrees for those who watched the Bills game. Also, I think the Chiefs played in Arrowhead Stadium just a few days ago against the Texans. That was 20-something degrees as well. So this notion that it would be too dangerous for people to go outside. 76,000 people went to Arrowhead Stadium to watch the Bills. To watch the Chiefs.
Trump family entering now. Notice in the back, Barron Trump and others making their way into the U.S. Capitol.
If you have questions, just tag my name and throw them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them right now. Here's an interesting question, and why the hell not just talk about this? Who do you think will be the Democratic and Republican candidates in 2028? I know it's early. Republican candidates, I would probably say J.D. Vance. You have that incumbency advantage as the vice president, and of course the regular clown car of Looney Tunes. But in terms of the Democratic candidates in 2028, I want to twist the question a little bit, and this is something that I've been hearing about for a lot. This idea that We need non-establishment folks as the Democratic candidate. So a name that I had heard floating around and that has always been kind of in my mind is this idea that Jon Stewart would ever run for president. I don't think he would, but look, in large part, the reason that I do what I do is after having grown up watching coverage by Jon Stewart. I think we've seen precedent in the world, for satirists and comedians to ascend to the top office in their country. Vladimir Zelensky is exactly that. Kind of played a satirical president in his own country before becoming the actual president. And we've also seen an appetite in this country for a president who is a TV star, somebody who is not an establishment figure, a populist, even though, again, we will talk about the validity of Trump's populism in just a moment if you want. But, I mean, Jon Stewart would be somebody that I think would garner a lot of support and is in large part the reason that I started doing what I'm doing right now. So that would be cool. Do I think it would happen? No. Why? Because I don't think that we can have nice things. But that would be one name that if I have any influence in the broader scheme of things, I would like to throw into the zeitgeist here, because why the hell not? Another name that I've heard floating around too is, because people, again, are interested in reality stars who have a lot of money and command national attention in the attention economy. Mark Cuban is one who's been an outspoken advocate for progressivism or democratic policies, and so I think that would offer something of an interesting entrant into the race. And then, of course, look, on the same lines, if we're talking the attention economy, who better in the Democratic Party right now in terms of an actual official to command that kind of attention than AOC? I think that she probably wouldn't run because she's been very deliberate about when she decides to step into the spotlight, to seek higher office. We saw her very deliberately attempt to become the ranking member of the Oversight Committee. Democrats, in their infinite wisdom, decided to have Jerry Connolly, 74 years old, who unfortunately has cancer, to make him the ranking chair, even though he isn't able to command any attention in this attention economy. And AOC has the singular ability to do exactly that. Still opted not to elevate her to the ranking member chair, to the ranking member spot on Oversight. But here we are. In any case, those are a few names. Of course, I don't think we'll see Bernie Sanders run again. He'll be in his late 80s by then, and I'm not sure. I mean, we may very well see Pete Buttigieg. We may very well see Gavin Newsom. We may very well see Gretchen Whitmer. We may very well see Wes Moore. So there are a lot of names that are clearly floating around, but they range from the very probable, in which, you know, I think it's probably very likely that Gavin Newsom runs for president, to the improbable, which is the likelihood that Mark Cuban or Jon Stewart run for president. But just, I very clearly too early to be talking about this, but why not? What do we have to lose by virtue of just kind of having fun and having that discussion now? I'm getting a few iterations of this question. How is this not the final nail in the coffin of democracy? And I don't really know how to answer it other than to say that it may be.
The Honorable William J. Clinton, accompanied by the Honorable Hillary Rodham Clinton.
It may be. I hope that it's not. My job here is to do what I can insofar as I have any influence to ensure that it's not. I know that here's the difference. My job is to make sure that it isn't, and to fight to make sure that it doesn't happen. And so everybody else has a vested interest in making sure that we pay attention, because it is expressly when we give up and stop paying attention to this stuff and cede this ground completely to the right that it actually does allow for that to become a reality. And so look, I hope that I don't look back 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 12 years from now, and say that this was the final nail in the coffin. There obviously is a part of me that thinks it might be, but we don't know what we don't know. The future's not written yet, and at this point, all we can do is work to hold these people accountable and to make sure that, starting in 2 years from now in midterms, that there is a check on Republicans' overreach and extremism, and ultimately that we get Democrats in office again. So, look, to your question, it may be. I hope it's not. We have agency here to push forward this idea that it isn't. But I hear you. Estimated net worth of everybody in that space, my God, that's probably 5% of the nation's GDP there. Donald Trump has the most billionaires in his cabinet of any president to ever take office. I think at last count there were...
The Honorable Barack H. Obama.
At last look, there were about 13 billionaires in this cabinet, and so the notion that Donald Trump swept into office amid populist promises of lowering the cost of groceries is an absolute joke. And we've already heard Mike Johnson, by the way, start to hedge against what were broad promises by Republicans to bring down the cost of groceries. Very clearly, they can't, and they don't have the stomach to. And so they're not willing to, and so they're not going to put any legislation forward that does anything close to exactly that, because they got what they need from their voters. They got their votes, and they were able to exploit their pain over the high cost of groceries. And so now that they got what they needed in terms of the high cost in terms of their votes, there's much less interest in perpetuating this charade where Republicans pretend to give anything close to a shit about what people are paying for the cost of eggs in this country. And so after Trump assembled a cabinet of almost exclusively billionaires, very clearly these people are not going to be concerned with lowering the cost of random items in the supermarket. They're going to be concerned with making sure that they get what they need, their businesses get what their businesses need, their sectors get what their sectors need, and that their donors get what their donors need. So we will not see any legislation put forward to lower the cost of groceries or to target price gougers, which is exactly what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz sought to do. What we will see instead is legislation to extend the 2017 tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited millionaires and billionaires. That's what we're about to see in this administration. And look, we've been here before. Trump took office in 2017 amid promises of jobs boom, of a manufacturing renaissance in this country, of a healthcare plan that was more comprehensive and more affordable, of an infrastructure law, of a middle-class tax cut. None of those things happened. Donald Trump used all of his political capital not to fulfill any of the promises that he came into office with in 2017, but instead to pass a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. That's it. That's his priority. If you want to know what these people care about, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. Trump has already proven by virtue of his actions. Republicans have already proven by virtue of their actions what they care about. It is not helping the little guy. It is not helping the working class. It is not making sure that more jobs are added or that wages go up. It is just taking care of themselves and their donors. That's what you get when you elect Republicans and Donald Trump to office. And it's a shame that the only way that people are going to recognize that, all of the people who voted for him are going to recognize that, is when he yet again breaks his promise to lead in a way that is in any way, on any planet, populist. One more note, for folks who are upset at the fact that I'm live streaming this, and this is what I explained when I first started the live stream, but I think it's worth reiterating right here. The one lesson that we should be taking from the last few years is that when we cede ground, including events like this where people are going to be tuning in, people are going to be watching, when we cede ground to the right and say, oh, we're not going to cover this, we don't want to humor any of this, and so we're going to bury our heads in the sand and pretend that it's not happening, people are going to watch anyway. And the coverage they're going to get, because left-wing voices have decided to voluntarily bow out, the coverage that they get is either going to be inherently neutral or right-wing. And my job is persuasion. I am here to make sure that I can try to persuade as many people as possible, even if it's just one or two, that we need to embrace the progressive agenda and embrace the progressive agenda. Let me fix this real quick. Embrace the progressive agenda and hold accountable Donald Trump and Republicans for the things that they say that they have no intention of doing. If I was to say I'm not going to cover this, people are still going to watch because it's a massively newsworthy event, but they won't get to watch it with my coverage. They won't get to watch it with anything close to my worldview influencing what they think. And so I have no intention of saying, okay, this is something I don't like, and so I'm just going to pretend it's not happening and go ahead, watch it on Tim Pool's channel, watch it on Steven Crowder's channel, watch it along with Dan Bongino or Megyn Kelly or Fox News or OAN. And I would presume that people who are also in favor of Democrats would not want this ground ceded to the right. This is a problem that Democrats have to confront and recognize, and that is that when we voluntarily surrender this ground to the right, they're perfectly content to fill that void. I have no intention of doing that. If that means I can go on Fox News, hell, I'll go on Fox News. I'll go on any right-wing platform because I think we need to be there to bring those people who are watching that stuff back. And when Democrats lean in on this outdated, archaic mentality of pretending that it's not worth our time to go in these spaces, all we're doing is proving the thesis that Republicans have been relying on to garner support for years and years and years, which is that they have these media bubbles that they're perfectly content to draw people into, and if no Democrats want to go and stand their ground and fight for their ideals, that's fine by them. They don't want Democrats in there because our ideas are better, and they know that if we're going to fight for them, they will be exposed for having worse ideas. I don't intend to do that. I think it's important to be in these spaces. I think it's important to make our case to the American people, starting with events like this one, which I'm not happy about watching, clearly dedicated my life to making sure that Democrats take office, win office, pass progressive agenda items, and that Donald Trump and Republicans don't win here. So clearly not happy about doing this. But the reality is, A, it's a newsworthy event. B, people are going to be watching, and I would much rather have the opportunity to offer up some of my worldview than just completely cede this ground to the right wing, who, by the way, is perfectly content to have me cede this ground so that I offer no opposition to them in the process. We're about 40 minutes away from Trump taking the oath of office here. Again, this is indoors in the rotunda, not being held outside because he was too afraid to get the side-by-side optics of what his inauguration would look like today next to Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he has ordered the flags not to be flown at half-staff, but I will get some confirmation on that. This is a good point. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Keep making our voices heard so they can't ignore us. I think that's exactly right. Do not voluntarily cede ground, cede the narrative to the right. They're perfectly content to have us do that. Why we would do their bidding for them is beyond me. Somebody wrote, I know why they moved it inside. All that white would get lost in a blizzard. Yeah. That's funny. So there it is. Yeah, I'm thank you for people telling me in the comments that they said the flags would be at full staff. So too insecure to allow the flags to remain at half staff in the aftermath of the death of Jimmy Carter. Just riddled with insecurity at the optics of everything. You know that this guy is suffering from the worst imposter syndrome in the world when even the sight of flags at half staff are enough to make him feel some kind of way about taking office. Again, about 35 minutes out here from Donald Trump taking the oath of office here. Here, I'm getting a question here regarding the TikTok ban backlash. For example, the mass migration of U.S. users to Red Note and rush to delete Meta accounts by a large number of people and to switch to other services like Blue Sky. Do you think it will make any difference in the political sphere regarding the way Democrats move forward, or do you think they've learned nothing? It's a good question. I think that Democrats probably... This is sad to say. I think Democrats have probably not learned the lessons that they should have yet. I think it's going to be incumbent on folks in the independent media space to pick up the mantle where Democrats are clearly not willing to learn the lesson. Look, I spoke a few minutes ago about the importance of garnering attention in the attention economy. I think we can all agree, whether you like her or not, that there is nobody better at commanding attention in the Democratic Party than AOC. Democrats had the ability to elevate somebody like AOC. Well, AOC herself to the top of the House Oversight Committee. She ran against Jerry Connolly, who for all intents and purposes has been fine, but the reality is that in an attention economy, you need people who are able to command attention. Nobody's able to do it better than AOC, and certainly not Jerry Connolly. And so this was our ability to show that we had learned something from the 2024 election, learned something about the way that this media environment operates, and instead, the majority of Democrats voted to adhere to tradition, and because Jerry Connolly's been there the longest, that he should be elevated to the chairman, to the ranking member spot, and that's what they did. And so clearly, Democrats haven't learned their lesson. I think a lot of them have. If you've watched my YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that there have been a lot of Democratic officials who've come forward and wanted to do interviews, 10-minute sit-downs. I spoke with Gavin Newsom. I've spoken with Brian Schatz. I'm speaking with Chris Murphy soon. Spoken with Jasmine Crockett. So there are people who are very clearly willing to come forward and embrace independent media in the way that they might not have been so willing to do so before. But the vast majority of people in the party, I don't think understand yet. And so the onus is going to be not on septuagenarians and octogenarians who are sitting in the halls of Congress, but rather on independent media folks throughout the progressive media ecosystem to pick up the mantle and actually reach people. Look, we haven't elected these people to know how to use TikTok and get out there and reach Gen Z on some random social media platform. These people are in office to be able to legislate. The reality is that the vast majority of them got into office before any of this became a qualification, a prerequisite for them running. Now, I think when you have Democrats who are running for office who have no ability to do that, I think that's where we have a liability moving forward, because we should have people who can do both. We should have people who can legislate, but also the ability to command attention, stir up passion, and command an audience on these social media platforms, which is more important, by the way, than being able to just go on to CNN and make your case on CNN to some dwindling faction of people, to some 30, 40, 50,000 people who are actually watching, who, by the way, are probably all going to vote for Democrats anyway, so you're really just bringing sand to the beach at this point. Melania Trump dressed like a international spy. Like a grayscale Carmen Sandiego. Do I think the planned Chicago ice raids will be a test or just the beginning of many more to come? Probably. And look, this is me guessing. So this and $10 will get you a foot long at Subway. I don't know. I can't predict the future. If I could predict the future, Kamala Harris would be the president right now, and we'd be in a much different world. So can't predict the future, but I can say that if I were to guess, I would say that we're probably going to see ice raids happening with more and more frequency.
Ladies and gentlemen, performing "Oh America," please welcome the Armed Forces Chorus and America's tenor, Christopher D. Macchio.
Getting strong funeral vibes from this inauguration here. Somebody wrote 30 minutes until eggs are cheaper. Oh wait, that's not going to happen. Okay. Here's the question I'm getting right now. Do I have hope? Because I don't. That's the question. Do you have hope? Because I don't. I'm in short supply of hope right now, to be perfectly honest. But what I do know is that the only way to get to the other side of this thing is if people do stay engaged and do continue to fight. I think that if there isn't some, look, you may not have hope, but I think there does have to be a willingness to stay in the fight here and to not completely cede this ground to the right, to not throw up our hands and say that we're just giving up, because that's when it's virtually assured that that we should be hopeless. Like that's what will usher in the reality where we are actually at a complete loss of hope. So I think that it's incumbent on us to, whether we have hope right now or not, to recognize the virtue of staying engaged, staying activated, staying in this fight, because it's when we all check out that the overreach really does happen. And that's a moment where all hope is lost, when the overreach happens and no one's there to push back. And so I don't know that I have hope right now, but I do know that I have a willingness to stay in this fight and see it through until midterms, and then see it through until the election in 2028, because that's the only way that we get to the other side of this. There is no going around it. There's only going through it. And so this is a situation where we don't have the luxury of being able to say, we don't have the luxury of being able to say we're just going to tune out and hope that everything works well, because if we tune out knowing full well what Trump is capable of, that's when we end up in a situation where we have folks who don't abide by a peaceful transfer of power, who don't accept the election results. That's a situation in which we should all be hopeless. And so I think that by virtue of remaining in the fight right now, that's how we avoid a situation where all hope really is lost. How do I cope with friends and family who are actually happy about this and are completely blind to all of Trump's atrocities? I don't have family who are happy about Trump's election. I don't have friends who are happy about Trump's election. I know people who are happy about Trump's election. I have acquaintances who are happy about Trump's election. But, I choose who I want to surround myself with, and I'm not voluntarily surrounding myself with somebody who is going to be expressly joyous at the fact that Trump won the 2020
Ladies and
election.
gentlemen, escorting the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States, ranking member of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Deb Fischer, House Democratic Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries.
What is my
and
opinion
Senate
of celebrities
Majority
like Snoop
Secretary,
Dogg or
the
Nelly choosing to
Honorable
perform at
Robert
Trump's
Duncan.
inauguration, even though Snoop, for example, said that he abhorred the idea in 2016? I think it's cowardly. I think that we have seen so much bending of the knee by celebrities and business leaders and tech bros.
Ladies and gentlemen, the
It
President
is
of the United
astounding
States, the Honorable
and
Joseph R.
depressing
Biden Jr. and Vice
the extent
President
to
of the
which
United States,
all of these
the
people
Honorable Kamala
from
Davy Harris.
From ABC News to Elon to Zuckerberg to Bezos to Shu to the owner of the LA Times, Disney, all of these institutions, all of these outlets, Snoop Dogg, all of these people just trying to do what they can to curry favor with somebody who is too thin-skinned not to allow them to operate with impunity until and unless they bend the knee. Just completely groveling, just sycophants they've turned into. Have a spine, have some integrity.
Ladies and gentlemen, escorting the Vice President-elect, the Executive Director for the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Mr. Michael Wagner, Senate Deputy Sergeant-at-Arms and Doorkeeper, Jason Bell, and House Deputy Sergeant-at-Arms, Mr. Sean Keating. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President-elect of the United States, the Honorable J.D. Vance.
I'm reading, even CBS is considering settling the lawsuit with Trump over the Kamala 60 Minutes thing. I wouldn't be surprised. We are watching every media outlet, every institution, all of these institutions, by the way, that beat their chests when they weren't challenged on this stuff, beat their chests about how democracy is so important and the fourth estate is so important, and we have to stand up to the excesses of government, report without fear or favor. And the moment they were challenged, it was so easy to say this stuff when, like, Bill Clinton was in office, when Barack Obama was in office. But the minute they're challenged, the minute they actually have to sack up and stand behind the very principles that they themselves have spent years and years and years espousing and beating their chests about, the minute that the democracy dies in darkness people actually have to protect democracy from dying in darkness, suddenly all of them completely abdicate their responsibilities and kowtow to Trump. Suddenly, the Washington Post guy, Jeff Bezos, decides, oh, democracy doesn't die in darkness anymore. Here's $1 million for the guy who refused to abide by a peaceful transfer of power in 2020. ABC News and George Stephanopoulos, a completely winnable case, a defamation case where George Stephanopoulos repeated what a judge had said. They settle for $5 million? Are you kidding me? And we have seen that over and over and over again, where all of these people who are supposed to be these protectors of democracy, these people who've made a name in the industry, these institutions, these outlets who've made a name in the industry as some purported protectors of our democracy and our government and our way of life and the Constitution and the United States of America itself, suddenly those people, the moment they're challenged on any of it, completely throw up their hands and start heaping ungodly sums of money to Donald Trump for, by the way, an inauguration that isn't even being held outdoors.
Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
I think we have breaking news right now. It looks like Biden has pardoned members of his own family. James Biden, Sarah Biden, Valerie Biden Owens, John Owens, Francis Biden. A full and unconditional pardon.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
This was released 30 seconds ago. That was his last act in office. Biden's last act in office is to pardon his family. Which, of course, now gives Donald Trump the ability to say that, you know, he and the people who surround him can commit crimes with impunity because of the Joe Biden precedent. Now, I understand the pushback to that is that Trump would abuse his positions anyway, and you're completely right, but now he will be even more emboldened to do it. And the scary part of that is that Trump will view the next 4 years as carte blanche to commit crimes with impunity, to surround himself with people who commit crimes with impunity, knowing full well that there is the pardon power perfectly at his disposal, and he can use and abuse it at his will. And that's what he's going to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome the chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 60th presidential inauguration. Today, President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Vance will take their oaths of office, and we will witness the peaceful transfer of power at the heart of our democracy.
Notice how the peaceful transfer of power is only a thing when a Republican wins and a Democrat loses. I understand why they're hammering this home, but I think what Democrats have to recognize is it does not matter for Republicans. This idea of offering them goodwill and a show of good faith as some example for what they should follow in the future, they don't care. They don't care. They're not going to look at this and say, oh, well, they offered up goodwill to us by showing up to the inauguration, presiding over the peaceful transfer of power, beating their chests about how important it was, refusing to wage objections to any of the results. All of this stuff is done, whether you agree with it or not. All of this stuff is done because the Democrats view this as them offering some goodwill that they hope will be reciprocated by Republicans. What the Democrats don't realize is that you can give Republicans all of the goodwill in the world. It won't matter. It will not be reciprocated. They do not care. They will trash the Constitution the moment it becomes politically inconvenient for them. And so I understand why Democrats are coming forward and saying, look how we're doing the peaceful transfer of power. Donald, Republicans, we're all here, Donald, Republicans. We are not trashing the Capitol, Donald, Republicans. But at the end of the day, if these people lose, they will not think back and say, oh, well, remember the last time the Democrats heaped goodwill onto us and tried to set a good example for us? It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter to those people. They will think, let's ransack the Capitol because we didn't get what we want. Let's smear our shit on the walls and try to hang the vice president and the speaker of the House because we didn't get what we want. That's how their brains work. And so this idea that we are going to continue heaping goodwill onto these people as some example for them to follow ignores the fact that they don't care what examples are set. We've had 250 years of examples set in the lead up to 2020. They still ransacked the Capitol and tried to hang the vice president and tried to assassinate the Speaker of the House and tried to steal the 2020 election, all the while pretending that there was fraud where there existed none. So again, understand why they're doing this, but I hope that Democrats wise up and recognize that all of the good example in the world is going to count for nothing at the end of the day.
The people of this nation, the ordinary people doing extraordinary things. President Kennedy, who at one point worked as a senator in this building and would often walk through this very rotunda, once said, "In a democracy, every citizen, regardless of interest in politics, holds office. Every one of us is in a position of responsibility." With that responsibility of citizenship comes an obligation not to seek out malice, as President Lincoln once reminded us, but to view others with a generosity of spirit despite our differences. With that responsibility of leadership comes an obligation to stand our ground when we must and find common ground when we can. With everything swirling around us, the hot mess of division, it is on all of us, to quote an incredible songwriter who just happened to be born in my state, to ensure that our nation's democracy is our shelter from the storm. There's a reason this ceremony takes place at the Capitol. In other countries, it might be in a presidential palace or a gilded executive office building. Here it is traditionally held at the Capitol, the People's House. It is a fitting reminder of the system of checks and balances that is the very foundation of our government. 3 equal branches of government. That is how, for nearly 250 years, our great American experiment, grounded in the rule of law, has endured. So, as we inaugurate a new president and vice president, let us remember that the power of those in this room comes from the people. The construction workers who build our country, the teachers and healthcare workers who nurture us, the troops defending our freedoms, and yes, the firefighters in Los Angeles putting themselves on the line for us. Our democracy's strength and grit must match theirs. May God bless our nation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Endurance through the years is the ultimate test. To persevere through time is the truest measure of an idea, an institution, and a nation.
This is the woman whose husband refused to shake Kamala Harris's hand when she was sworn in.
America could withstand
Class acts here.
twists and turns of time. They wrote it to guide us and to preserve forever our right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But as much as the truths and principles enshrined in our Constitution remain the same, our democracy promises the American people the power to change, to chart their own destiny. That's the beauty. That is the importance of democracy. It allows the endurance, the permanence of a nation through change. It allows nations like our United States both to avoid the obstacles and to seize the opportunities God has placed before us, all while staying true to our founding principles. Today is our country's 60th inauguration ceremony. Like all the others before it, it is a celebration of our right to set our uniquely American course. The past several years have been trying at times for many, many Americans, and also for the nations of the free world that we humbly strive to lead. In November, Americans chose again to steer this nation towards greatness, the secure, safe, and prosperous future that our founders envisioned for all of us. And today, we celebrate not only their decision to do so, but also the simple right and wisdom of a free people to make their own choice so that their nation might endure. And now, allow me to welcome Archbishop Timothy Dolan and Reverend Franklin Graham, who will deliver our invocation. Please rise.
Be still and know that I am God, supreme among the nations, supreme on the earth. Let us pray. Remembering General George Washington on his knees at Valley Forge, recalling Abraham Lincoln at his second inaugural, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right. Remembering General George Patton's instructions to his soldiers as they began the Battle of the Bulge 8 decades ago. Pray. Pray when fighting. Pray alone. Pray with others. Pray by night. Pray by day. Observing the birthday of the Reverend Martin Luther King, who warned, without God, our efforts turn to ashes. We, blessed citizens of this one nation under God, humbled by our claim that in God we trust, gather indeed this Inauguration Day to pray for our President Donald J. Trump, his family, his advisors, his cabinet, his aspirations, his vice president, for the Lord's blessings upon Joseph Biden, for our men and women in uniform, for each other whose hopes are stoked this new year, this Inauguration Day, we cannot err in relying upon that prayer from the Bible, upon which our president will soon place his hand in oath, as we make our own the supplications of King Solomon for wisdom as he began his governance. God of our fathers, in your wisdom you set man to govern your creatures, to govern in holiness and justice, to render justice with integrity. Give our leader wisdom, for he is your servant, aware of his own weakness and brevity of life. If wisdom which comes not from you be not with him, he shall be held in no esteem. Send wisdom from heavens, that she may be with him, that he may know your designs. Please, God, bless America. Please mend her every flaw. You are the God in whom we trust, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Mr. President, the last 4 years, there are times I'm sure you thought it was pretty dark. But look what God has done. We praise him and give him glory. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, thou hast said, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. As the prophet Daniel prayed, blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings. He raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Our Father, today, as President Donald J. Trump takes the oath of office once again, we come to say thank you, O Lord our God. Father, when Donald Trump's enemies thought he was down and out, you and you alone saved his life and raised him up with strength and power by your mighty hand. We pray for President Trump, that you'll watch over, protect, guide, direct him. Give him your wisdom from your throne on high. We ask that you would bless him and that our nation would be blessed through him. We also ask that you would bless and protect Melania as First Lady. We thank you for the beauty, the warmth, and grace that she shows not only to this nation, but to the whole world. We thank you for Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and his wife Usha and their young family. May he be a strength to President Trump, to stand beside him, to hold up his arms like Aaron held up the arms of Moses in the midst of battle. The prophet Samuel reminded the people, it was you that brought them up from the land of Egypt. And he said, now stand still, that I may reason with you before the Lord. So, Father, we take this moment to stand still, to remember the great things that you have done for this nation. Thank you for the protection, the bounty, the freedoms that we so enjoy. We remember to keep our eyes fixed on you, and may our hearts be inclined to your voice. We know that America can never be great again if we turn our backs on you. We ask for your help, and we pray all of this in the name of the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, your Son, my Savior, and our Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Associate Justice Kavanaugh to administer the Vice Presidential Oath of Office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith
That I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same.
and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely,
That I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
And that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
on which I am about to enter.
on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Justice Roberts to administer the presidential oath of office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
I wish I had the right thing to say right now. Look, if it's my audience watching this, I think everybody feels largely the same way. Hopefully there are a few people who are not in my audience who are watching this, who are just watching it because they're interested in hearing both sides. But for my audience, my usual audience, that's obviously skews left, obviously a rough moment to sit through, obviously a rough moment for me to have to cover, but the reason that I'm covering this and the reason I think it's so important that people are watching this, and more broadly why it's so important that people stay engaged and involved, is because it is only when people check out that Donald Trump will actually be most capable of the overreach that he is inevitably going to attempt. We need people, we need public pressure, we need people tuned in and paying attention and staying engaged and activated. Without that, that is when Republicans will be most successful. You have to remember that in 2017, after Trump was elected, because of the public pressure, not only did we save the ACA, but Democrats would come into office in the midterms, winning the House by the biggest margin in modern American history. That only happens if people remember to stay engaged and stay involved. If people check out, we don't get that. So, as difficult as it is, right now we start the hard work of holding this administration to account and working toward regaining our majority in the House, and probably to a lesser extent because of the map, but the Senate. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. That happens when people stay engaged. It happens when people stay involved. It happens when people continue to hold this administration accountable for the things that they say and do. It's not going to be fun. And I'm sure that a lot of days are going to require people tuning out for their own sanity. I wish I had that luxury. Today is not one of them. But I think, as we move forward, it really is incumbent on everybody to make sure to kind of not check out of politics. If you do, you'll effectively be giving Republicans exactly what they're looking for, which is carte blanche to move forward with impunity. And so I do hope that people, for as difficult as it is, continue to tune in and watch this stuff. And it's important. And for a lot of people, it's going to be life and death. For a lot of people, it's going to be the difference between getting health care and not getting health care. For a lot of people, it's going to be the ability to stay in this country if they're an undocumented immigrant who's been here forever. For a lot of people, it's going to impact their ability to get an abortion or seek reproductive care. For a lot of people, it's going to be life or death in terms of the availability and proliferation of guns and weapons of war on our streets. For a lot of people, climate change is going to be the determining factor of what this country looks like in the next 50 to 100 years. And so all of that requires people staying engaged. And I know that that's difficult. I'm right now live streaming the inauguration of somebody who I've dedicated my life to opposing. So I understand that it's difficult, but nothing changes unless we make sure that it does. We have to recognize and remember that we have agency in all of this. And we choose moving forward whether we're going to be quiet and complacent or whether we're going to be resistant to what he's doing, to offer some pushback where it's necessary. I think it's going to be incumbent on us to remember to use our voices, maybe not for everything so that we feel so scattered, but rather in the instances where our voices are really required. So we can be deliberate and strategic about how we use our voices, but I do think that we do need to use our voices in the next 4 years here. So look, again, for people watching, I'm glad that you've tuned in, and I know that it's probably not difficult if you're on the left like I am to have watched all of this stuff, just like it's not going to be difficult to wake up every day and wait for just the avalanche of bad news that's going to befall us. But part of being in the fight is showing up when it's most difficult, and that's going to be right now. So again, I do appreciate people tuning in. I know that it's not easy to watch this stuff, and if you're like me, you probably did so with a pit in your stomach. But you all tuning in and watching and making sure that you're signaling that you're going to stay engaged over the next 4 years is especially important right now, because this is the time that it's most needed. You can't really just show up for the wins and check out at the losses. It's right now that the hard work is most necessary.
It is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you the 45th and the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, thank you very, very much. Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Senator Thune, Chief Justice Roberts, Justices of the United States Supreme Court, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and my fellow citizens. The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. And our top priority.
A DOJ that refused to prosecute Trump until the very end, and that also prosecuted a bunch of Democrats.
America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America. As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world.
He only knows demagoguery. He doesn't know how to do anything but demagoguery.
Foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina, been treated so badly. And other states who are still suffering from a hurricane that took place many months ago. Or more recently, Los Angeles, where we are watching fires still tragically burn from weeks ago without even a token of defense. They're raging through the houses and communities, even affecting some of the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in our country, some of whom are sitting here right now. They don't have a home any longer. That's interesting. But we can't let this happen. Everyone is unable to do anything about it. That's going to change. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly.
Right, the love in our country. He's about to start mass deportations in like 2 hours, but okay.
My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear.
Oh, here we go.
But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
My hope for everybody watching is that you love someone, you have someone in your life that you love as much as Donald Trump loves Donald Trump.
Thank you very much. That is why each day under our administration of American patriots, we will be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. It is my hope that our recent presidential election will be remembered as the greatest and most consequential election in the history of our country. As our victory showed, the entire nation is rapidly unifying behind our agenda with dramatic increases in support from virtually every element of our society, young and old, men and women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, urban, suburban, rural. And very importantly, we had a powerful win in all 7 swing states. And the popular vote, we won by millions of people. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true. Thank you. Thank you. National unity is now returning to
Unity.
America.
The theme of
and
this
confidence
speech is
and
unity?
pride is soaring like never before. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country. We will not forget our Constitution, and we will not forget our God. Can't do that. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
We produce more oil now than at any other point in history, including during Trump's first term. This notion that we're under some energy emergency is just a handout to fossil fuel companies. That's all it is. A handout to fossil fuel companies who are already getting heaped money and influence.
America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have, the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal, and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
Here's what that does. That seeds the next generation of renewable energy manufacturing and clean energy vehicles to China. This China is laughing all the way to the bank right now.
In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice.
You can already buy.
We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote. I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens.
Tariffs are paid by the company in the importing country, and those costs are passed on to
establishing
consumers, which
the
is us.
External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency.
Doge's first cut apparently was Vivek Ramaswamy.
After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Man, what are Republicans going to do if they can't complain about trans people? It's bad when they catch the car and they don't have something to whine about.
This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families. Thank you. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
So this is somehow going to lower the cost of eggs, getting into some war with Panama. I've been hearing a lot about Trump being the pro-peace president. Is this what everybody meant by pro-peace?
Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. So as we liberate our nation, we will lead it to new heights of victory and success. We will not be deterred. Together we will end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
This is all like if you made a 14-year-old the president. Yeah, we're going to fight Panama and go to Mars. Like, it's just all nonsense, and none of it actually helps regular people. All of those suckers who thought that they were voting to lower the cost of groceries are getting a rude awakening right now.
Than any other, there's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry.
Stop all wars. He just got done with the section where he invades Panama to steal the canal.
Respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, performing America the Beautiful, please welcome the Armed Forces Chorus and Carrie Underwood.
It's not muted. We're just waiting for anything to begin. Well, you know what this means. This means none of the contractors are getting paid today. We got one last Biden supporter in there. It's the audio engineer.
If you know the words, help me out here. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Fisher will now introduce the benediction clergy.
So Trump's speech, exactly the type of demagoguery that you would expect. Bizarrely, the speech mostly focused on this claim of unity, while at the same time driving wedges between every vulnerable group and the majority here. This idea that Trump is going to usher in some period of peace and prosperity, while at the same time introducing this idea that he's now going to forcefully annex the Panama Canal from a separate sovereign country. This idea that he's introducing into the body politic American expansionism. Like, are we going back to the age of imperialism now? And this is supposed to be at the same time some era of peace? This is pushback against the pro-war policies of the Democratic Party, that you have somebody like Donald Trump who just admitted in his inauguration speech that he wants to expand America's territory and annex the territory of sovereign countries around the world. So clearly rife with rife with contradiction throughout the entire thing, while also making sure to lean in on so many of the themes that were present during the campaign, which was, for example, attacks against trans people, which was relentless focus on everything conspicuously except the cost of high grocery prices and eggs. Guy ran his entire campaign focused on the cost of eggs because he knew that was one of the most important and potent issues that Americans were facing. And yet now, when he has the ability to actually preside in a way that would back up his words during the campaign, he's conspicuously silent on all of the issues regarding the high price of food, groceries, and other goods, because it was never about lowering the cost of these items. It was never about helping middle-class families. It was never about making sure that groceries were affordable. That was just a cudgel that he used to wield against the Democrats so that he can gain the votes of people who he needed to exploit only until the moment that he no longer needed them. And that's what we're seeing right now. Him discarding the very people who he used and exploited back when he was running for office, and yet now, when he has the ability as president to show that he cares about the very issues that he pretended to care about on the campaign trail, like the cost of eggs, suddenly he's completely silent on that issue. Instead, barging forward with this idea that he's going to steal the Panama Canal from a sovereign country. Is that what everybody who wanted cheaper eggs thought they were signing up for? War with Panama, going in and invading South America? American expansionism? Is that going to lower the cost of eggs?
God's trust is in us.
So I think this will be just one of a myriad instances in which we're able to see that Donald Trump ran on a populist platform that he has absolutely no intention of executing. And we've seen this before. This was exactly his play in 2017. Ran a campaign in 2016 wholly focused on this idea that he's going to deliver some jobs boom, some manufacturing renaissance, bring in a healthcare plan that's cheaper and more comprehensive, pass a middle-class tax cut. He didn't do any of those things. Pass an infrastructure law, didn't do any of those things. All he did with his political capital was a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires.
A millimeter miracle. We are grateful that you are the one.
And so we've seen this before, in which Donald Trump will leverage the support of working class Americans with false promises that he's going to make life easier for them. And when push comes to shove and it's time to actually expend his political capital, he doesn't do anything with it that's going to help those people. The only people he's focused on are the ultra-wealthy. That's the only thing he actually managed to pass during his first term. The only thing that these people, Trump and the Republican Party, were actually willing to spend some of their political capital on was a tax cut where 83% of the benefits were conferred to the wealthiest people in this country. That's what they actually cared about. All this time spent talking about a middle-class tax cut, there was no middle-class tax cut. All this time spent talking about how we're going to upgrade our nation's infrastructure and bring us into the 21st century, they didn't lift a finger to do that. And they had bipartisan support, evidenced by the fact that we did exactly that during the Biden era. All this time spent that he's going to strip healthcare away from people to replace it with some more comprehensive, cheaper healthcare plan. They never put forward a healthcare plan. That's why John McCain voted against it, because it was just skinny repeal. There was no plan to actually replace it with anything. They never bothered to do that because it was not a real priority. And we're seeing the same exact thing here, where Trump swept into office after having exploited his supporters and their pain at the grocery store, the cost of eggs, the cost of everyday goods, and yet with all these sweeping executive orders about taking back the Panama Canal, sending soldiers to the southern border, all these culture war issues come to life. Not a single thing is being done to assuage the high cost, to mitigate the pain felt from the high cost of groceries. Not a single thing has been done. He didn't spend a single second talking about that in his speech because it was never about that. This was only solely about exacting retribution against his opponents, perpetuating culture wars, and promulgating this far-right agenda, and, of course, for Trump, massaging his ego by trying to engage in this second era of American expansionism, because he thinks that if he can do flashy things like rename the Gulf of Mexico, that's gonna keep him in the history books in a bigger way than his predecessors. Of course, that helps nobody. Expending his time and energy renaming the Gulf of Mexico helps exactly nobody, and yet in an instance where he does have the ability to actually help people on the very issue that he claimed to care about, doesn't lift a finger. And this will be the first of many, many, many times in which Donald Trump is proving to his supporters that they were exploited for their votes, and he is no longer interested in doing anything that might help them moving forward.
Almighty and eternal God, we gather here today in reverence, joined in our shared hopes and dreams for our beloved nation. In this sacred moment of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, we turn our hearts to you, seeking your divine assistance and abundant blessings upon this pivotal moment in history. We come before you with profound gratitude for the many gifts you have bestowed upon our land. Thank you for the freedoms we cherish, for the strength of our communities, and for the resilience of our spirit. As our President and Vice President embrace their newly appointed roles, we humbly implore that your everlasting love and wisdom will envelop them. Grant them the clarity of mind to navigate the challenges that lie ahead, and the compassion to serve all citizens with fairness and integrity. May their hearts be filled with a giving spirit and sincere understanding for those whom they represent. May they be beacons of hope in times of uncertainty and prophetic voices in defending the dignity of all created life. We pray for a spirit of collaboration to flourish in our government and across our nation, fostering an environment where dialogue and heartfelt listening will prevail over division or discord. May each decision made by our President and Vice President reflect the values of justice and peace. As we embark on this new chapter, we also seek your comfort, O God, for those who feel lost or disheartened. In this time of transition, may your light shine upon them, reaffirming their belief in a brighter tomorrow. May we all strive to lift one another, supporting our fellow citizens with kindness and empathy, recognizing that together we can overcome any adversity. Grant us the strength to endure, the courage to face our fears, and the clarity to see the light that remains, even when clouds of uncertainty may gather. Inspire our new leaders to be champions for the vulnerable and advocates for those whose voices are often silenced. May they pursue policies that promote the well-being of all, seeking to build bridges that will foster unity and belonging. As we stand witness to this inauguration, we hold fast to our faith in the goodness of each of us and the possibility of change. We trust that with your guidance, O God, our nation can move forward to a future filled with promise, prosperity, and understanding. And finally, we lift our hearts in gratitude for the beloved parents of President Trump. Without Mary and Fred Trump, this day would never be the miracle that has just begun. From their place in heaven, may they shield their son from all harm by their loving protection, and give him the strength to guide our nation along the path that will make America great again. Let us go forth now with these words of President Trump's emblazoned on our hearts. As long as we have pride in our beliefs, courage in our convictions, and faith in our God, then we will not fail. We stand tall, we stand proud, because we are Americans, and Americans kneel to God and to God alone. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for our national anthem.
Can you say, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose blood stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight of the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets in glee, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sailors at Star-Spangled
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain at your seats while the President and official party depart the platform.
Did Trump salute the singer? Did I see that right? I'm just trying to imagine what Fox News would say if a Democrat saluted the guy singing a national anthem, something on stage. I mean, it's just the circus is in town. Of course, Biden and all of the Democrats attended this inauguration. I have mixed feelings about that because on one hand, I don't know what we gained from skipping it. On the other hand, here's why they did it. They did it because they think that by setting a good example and doing bipartisanship, that it will offer a lesson for Republicans to take moving forward. What they're not recognizing, though, is that Republicans will not view any instance of goodwill by Democrats as something to be reciprocated. Democrats give goodwill to Republicans. Republicans see it. They say, cool, thanks, not going to reciprocate it. That's how it goes. Democrats will refuse to object to any of the election results. They'll show up at the inauguration. They'll do all these things in hopes that, okay, if we set a good example, if we set a good precedent, maybe Republicans will reciprocate it when the time comes for them to accept the election results, for them not to object, for them to show up at the inauguration ceremony. And it doesn't happen. And until Democrats realize that all of this goodwill counts for nothing, we are going to continue doing these useless exercises and bending over backwards to confer some degree of goodwill onto Republicans that will never come back our way. We'll do this thing where all the Democrats show up and they do the golf claps for Donald Trump and they shake their hands and they kiss their cheeks and oh, this is very nice, thank you so much. And then when the tables are turned, if a Democrat dares win an election in the future, these people will incite another fucking riot at the Capitol to prevent them from taking office. We're seeing it happen right now in North Carolina. Republicans refusing to sit Allison Riggs on the bench, even though she won the election because she committed the cardinal sin of being a Democrat. And so, yet again, we're seeing Democrats try to offer something of an example to Republicans. Look how good we are. Look how bipartisan we can be. Look how cordial. And when it comes time for Republicans to reciprocate, to show that they've learned their lesson, they'll do nothing. They won't reciprocate. They'll never respond in the same way the Democrats did. All of this goodwill counts for nothing. It doesn't get banked. It doesn't get returned. It doesn't get learned. It just gets forgotten. And in turn, Democrats look weak. Because we're the ones showing up and doing all the things and respecting the norms and institutions and bending over backwards and giving Donald Trump and Republicans the benefit of the doubt, and none of that will be reciprocated. Rinse and repeat. We are in this constant, elusive pursuit of bipartisanship that doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist. Republicans are not interested. Democrats will certify every election. Republicans won't certify anything where they lose. Hell, even if it's on the same ballot where other Republicans have won. Those are all fine. They'll just refuse to certify the election wins of people who don't have an R next to their name. Happened with Allison Riggs in North Carolina. They were perfectly content to certify Trump's election win in North Carolina, perfectly content to certify Republican lawmakers' win in North Carolina, but Allison Riggs, for the crime of being a Democrat in a Republican-run state, well, we couldn't possibly certify her election. And so we will see this over and over and over again, where Democrats will try and set an example in hopes that maybe this time Republicans will learn their lesson and usher in this era of bipartisanship that we've been hoping for, right? Tip O'Neill. It's not going to happen. And until the Democrats learn the political environment that we're in and that heaping goodwill onto the other side buys you exactly nothing, we will continue to lose, and worse than losing, we will look weak and foster no sense of fight among our the people who believe in democracy in this country. So look, that's why I do what I do. That's why I try to showcase people who recognize the importance of fighting back. That's why I'm here live streaming an inauguration of somebody. Let's fix this. An inauguration of somebody who very clearly I've dedicated my life to hoping that he didn't win this election, to prevent from taking office. Clearly don't want to be doing this, but I think it's important to show up and fight and to do the hard work of persuasion. And look, again, none of this stuff is going to be easy, and it's going to be a long road ahead trying to get people back into the fold of the Democratic Party. But I think it's incumbent upon the left to elevate people who actually give all of those people out there who've left the Democratic Party, who are disaffected by politics, who are about to be steamrolled by Trump, who are about to realize that they've been conned by him and the GOP, give them something to believe in. And if it's a Democratic Party that is so weak that it bends over backwards for Republicans just to spit in their faces every chance they get, that's not going to be some refuge for all those folks. So we need a party that is strong, that is willing to fight, that is not afraid to call out what the Republican Party is doing, not afraid to call out the the excesses and abuses by what's happening on the right, and to not just roll over for these people in search of some elusive bipartisanship that's never going to exist again. We have the better agenda. We have more Americans on the issue of climate change, on healthcare, on reproductive rights, on guns. So start acting like it. We need Democrats to be strong and to push back against this stuff because we are on the right side of these issues. We're on the right side of history. We're with the majority of Americans. But we need people who are not afraid to fight for this stuff as we head into this Trump era moving forward. What I'll do, insofar as I have any influence, is to elevate people who I think are going to be willing to fight, and not giving time to people who I think are going to be weak and overly deferential to Trump and Republicans for either fear of his retribution or in pursuit of some non-existent bipartisanship. So that's what I'm going to do with my platform as we look ahead over the next 4 years in terms of how Democrats can best position ourselves to succeed moving forward. I'm getting the comment, what happens if we do what they do by not showing up to the inauguration, etc., and then the division goes even further and is worse? It seems like a battle that doesn't fix anything, just wondering your thoughts. It's a good point. Yes, it delves us deeper into this fight between the two sides, but the reality is that we gain nothing by trying to extend an olive branch to the right. And so I think more important is to have politicians who go forth and show that they believe in something. Give people in this country something to believe in. I think that's going to be way more persuasive. It's not about trying to foster some non-existent bipartisanship with the other side and looking weak. That weakness is precisely what pushes people away. The Democratic Party is not in good standing right now and is not popular right now, not by virtue of the issues that they stand on, which is, again, the issues that Democrats are all popular with. It's the fact that people don't even know what the Democrats stand for. And that's owed to the fact that we keep in so many instances doing Republican light in hopes that it'll foster some goodwill with the right and that they'll finally do bipartisanship, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And so if we're the party that stands with the majority of Americans on climate change, do that unapologetically. If we're the party that stands with the vast majority of Americans on healthcare and reproductive rights, do that unapologetically. We don't need to do Republican light while we are reaching out to the vast majority of Americans on these issues. Show that you're passionate about something. Show that you believe in something. Show that you're willing to fight for something. We have a lot of Americans to get back, and a vast majority of those people who deferred to Trump at the very end of this election cycle, these are people who feel disaffected by politics. And so give them something to believe in instead of just trying to offer some bipartisanship with people who don't want it or who are going to turn around and trash you regardless anyway. That doesn't buy you anything. When we do Republican light, you think that we're garnering any of these votes by Republicans out there? You think that buys us anything? You think that when we refuse to prosecute Donald Trump, that these people are not going to say that the government was weaponized? Because they did. And so my point here is that by rolling over for Republicans, not only do you not buy yourself anything, because they're still going to say that you're the worst people in the world. They're still going to say that Democrats are the devil incarnate, right? But also, you prove to all those Americans out there you don't give them something to believe in. And so we need to win with the majority of people. So many people out there are just completely disaffected by what's happening in politics right now. So do populism and actually mean it. Trump just won on a fake platform of quasi-populism, of faux populism, just like he did in 2016. Guy came forward and said that he was going to usher in an era of jobs creation, of manufacturing, of a cheaper and more affordable, a more affordable and more comprehensive healthcare plan, of an infrastructure boom, of a middle-class tax cut. He didn't do any of those things. He passed a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. And so we can do these things that our agenda actually relies on, but do it unapologetically and fight for these things. Americans are willing to listen. They are willing to vote for this stuff. They voted for a con man twice who has no interest in helping them. Wow, look at that. They are outside in the dangerous cold. The dangerous cold. That is 20-degree weather. I'm surprised that they're not just turning into icicles and then crumbling to the ground as they step foot into those conditions. Dangerous conditions here. The same conditions that 76,000 people just went to Arrowhead Stadium to watch the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Houston Texans in. And so look, you have optics like this, where we have spent the last God knows how many years talking about how Donald Trump is rightly a threat to democracy, but Biden is so focused on trying to protect the norms in our institutions that he'll do this stuff, and it undermines what the message has been for so long. Would I walk out with Donald Trump in the same way as if it was George W. Bush, or as if it was Mitt Romney, or as if it was John McCain? No. Because I believe, rightly, that he's a threat to this country. But because there is such a focus, such an emphasis placed on deference to norms, we're left with a situation where the optics here undermine the message that's been put forward for the last few years. So Biden will depart in, well, it's not Air...
Now, as many of you know, inaugurals were traditionally held on the east front of the Capitol, where you see the...
well, it's not Air Force One anymore.
The helicopter sitting right now, and that was until 1985 and 1981, and Ronald Reagan moved it to the west. Looking west was one of the themes of his first inaugural. And it's been on the West Front ever since. And of course, the second Reagan inaugural was
it wouldn't be Air Force One because it's a helicopter. Marine One. It's not Marine One anymore, so I'm not sure what the designation of the aircraft is.
40 years because of the weather. It's about 20-25 degrees here in Washington, but quite windy. And it was predicted to be a little bit colder than it actually is. So there'll be a truncated parade this afternoon at the Capital One Arena. That's where the Washington Capitals hockey team play and the Washington Wizards basketball team, and that will occur this afternoon. Of course, we will be live with that as well. But coming up at the Capitol after the Bidens take off for Andrews Air Force Base and fly to Santa Barbara, there is going to be a presidential visit to the overflow crowd. About 1,300 more people were in Emancipation Hall, which is at the Congressional Visitor Center adjacent to the Capitol. The president will do some signing, and we'll find out what that's about, and then he will attend a congressional luncheon and a review of the troops before he departs the Capitol today predicted about 3:30 p.m. before he gets out of there. So we will be back with our guest, Jeffrey Engel of Southern Methodist University. We'll talk about some of this afternoon's events, and we'll also be checking the news with John McCardle as we go. But let's watch Marine One take
off. Thank you. I'm getting the comment. The military helicopter that normally has the call sign Marine One is assigned the Executive One call sign when it transports the outgoing president on their final flight. Appreciate that. So that's it. That's the official coverage of the inauguration. Just to answer, I think, a question that I've been asked 100 different ways today. Well, I'll answer two questions. The first is, why cover this? I think it's incumbent on the few of us who have some platform on the left, and we are dwarfed by the size of the platforms on the right, but the few of us who do have a platform on the left, to use that platform to talk to as many people as possible, to not cede that ground to the right. By virtue of not doing live streams today, for example, because it's an event that I don't like, there are people who are watching who are going to inherently have to find their coverage somewhere. They might end up at a right-wing channel. They might end up at a neutral channel. I would rather have the opportunity to give my take and be able to do the hard work of persuasion than send people off into right-wing ecosystems where they may never escape from. Does it mean that I'm sitting here at a moment that I don't want to be sitting here and covering an inauguration of somebody whose inauguration I don't want to be covering? Yeah. But that's the hard work of persuasion. It's being here and making sure that people have the option to hear from you, as opposed to just allowing them to retreat onto the right, or to cede that ground to right-wingers who, by the way, are perfectly content to have those people come to them. Like, they're all covering this. So why would we want to cede that ground and give the right carte blanche to reach people that we otherwise have the opportunity to reach? The work of persuasion starts right now, today. And it's going to be hard work, and it's not going to be fun a lot of the time, and it's going to require a lot of hours and energy and probably a good deal of mental health too, being surrendered and sacrificed. But at the same time, it's necessary, I think, from my perspective, that the few of us who do have the privilege of being able to talk to a lot of people on the internet, make sure that we not cede that ground again to the right.
Imhoff get in their limousine and head to where they're heading as well.
And the second question is, I think, the more important one, is what do we do from here? How do we move forward from here? I get it. I know that people are tired. I know they're exhausted. I know that we have spent the last almost a decade with Donald Trump and this Republican Party in our lives, and that is exhausting. And that this was supposed to be our reprieve, right? This was supposed to be the moment where Trumpism was finally defeated, that we wouldn't have to talk about him anymore, wouldn't have to think about him anymore. God knows I was looking forward to that. We are not in that situation, unfortunately. So where do we go from here? I think that the most important thing looking forward is that we stay in this fight so that we expressly stave off exactly the kind of future that we don't want to see. The reality is that so long as people are paying attention and holding this administration accountable and being in this fight, that's when we stand the best chance of being able to defeat Trump and the Republican Party at some point in the future. I'm hoping that it's in just 2 years for midterms. Let me see what this is. I'm hoping that it's in just 2 years at midterms. But the reality is that unless people are actually willing to show up and fight, as miserable as it may be, we won't be able to succeed. And so we need people engaged. We need people activated. Remember, the only way we were able to save the ACA between 2017 and 2019, when Republicans had full control of government,
remarks to the overflow crowd and
the only reason we were able to save the ACA was because people were waging a pressure campaign in the public. I don't want people to think that Donald Trump is immune to public pressure, because he won't be. He'll try to be, but he won't be immune to public pressure. And so that relies on people who don't want to be paying attention to politics because of who's in office, and because of how gross so many of the days are going to be. That relies on people staying engaged and staying activated, and doing the hard work of pushing back against this administration when it's necessary. And I would also remind you that it took 2 years from Trump to take office before Democrats ushered in the biggest margin in the House in modern American history. Flipped the House to Democrats' control, brought 41 Democratic members into the fold who weren't there before, and flipped control of the lower chamber.
Controversy there with Deb Fischer. Here's the Speaker of the House.
Trump's triumphant return to the White House. Right now, already this morning, you can feel it around the country. We certainly felt it here in the city. America is coming together and roaring back again, and it begins today, as the president just told us. I know we'd all rather be gathered together on the National Mall with hundreds of thousands of our closest friends, but our disappointment is well overcome with our excitement for the future that we feel today. We have the chance to make the next 4 years the most consequential period in our nation's history. And as Speaker of the House, it is my great pleasure, my great honor, to introduce to you the man who will lead us to this new golden age, the decisive winner of the Electoral College and the popular vote, the 45th and the 47th, and the greatest president of our lifetimes, Donald J. Trump.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. And was that a hell of a speech or what? That was, man. That was a good way to start it off. You know, I didn't know exactly what the president would put in that speech, and I hoped to myself that he wasn't going to hold back, and sir, you didn't hold back. That was a hell of a way to start the next 4 years. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for the president and for all of us, thank you, thank you, thank you for making this possible. We love you. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're going to make America great again together for the next 4 years. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, having stood outside for about 5 minutes to wave goodbye to the Bidens, thank God we moved that thing indoors, because it was a beautiful ceremony and it was cold as hell outside. So, sir,
here we go.
The 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
These are the alphas that can't handle the same weather that 76,000 Chiefs fan.
Oh, look at this beautiful sunny day. We blew it. We blew it. And then I went outside and we were freezing. You would have been very unhappy. The sun was very deceptive, I will tell you. It is cold out. And I'm sort of saying, that was so beautiful today. Maybe they should do it there every 4 years. Does that make sense? I don't know. Because, the outdoor thing is really good, but it gets a little cold around this time of the year, as some people have noticed. And a lot of times they suffer through it. There was no suffering in that room. It was 72 degrees. It was perfect with the best acoustics I think I've ever heard in a room. This is not so bad either. But I just want to say, you're a younger, far more beautiful audience that I just spoke to. And I want to keep it off the record. I want to keep that off the record because I don't want to have all those big shots up there. I don't want to think you're more powerful than them, you look better than them, and I love you. Now, we just had a great time. We just had a great day. This was amazing. When you think we took a journey, I mentioned in the speech, a lot of people said that was not a journey that was possible, and it was indeed possible. I didn't really know too much about what they were saying when they said that, but a lot of people felt it. And we hooked up with J.D. very early. I watched J.D. over a period of time. I endorsed him in Ohio. He was a great senator and very, very smart. The only one smarter than him was his wife. That was, I would have chosen her, but somehow the line of succession didn't work that way, right? But now she's great and he's great. This is a great, beautiful couple and unbelievable career. I just said to him, you are very upwardly mobile, because he hasn't been doing it that long, but he picked it up so quickly. Remember, the first week was a little bit like the fake news was hitting him really hard. And I said, ooh, this may be tough, but after that, it was smooth sailing for him. He took on everybody. He took on the meanest. I don't want to use the word corrupt because we're into a new system, so let's wait till the corruption begins, because it will. But he took on some pretty mean people, and he handled it well. I want to also congratulate Mike Johnson for the job that he's doing. Steve, we gave him a majority of almost nothing, and then I said to make it tougher on him, let me take 2 or 3 of the people, right? I said he'll only have to suffer with that for about 3 months. How are they doing, by the way? Are they? Is that moving along?
Totally unified.
I said, do you mind if I take this one, that one, and a couple of others? He didn't mind. He can handle it. No, he's a man that's liked by everybody. I've never met a man like this. You've got how many is it, 219 or 220 or something? 220. And of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got 1 negative vote once about 2 weeks ago. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate him. So if you have 35 people that hate you and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, the good news is when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You could be really nasty to a couple of them at least. So it's going to feel like hitting your head on the wall and stopping. It feels so good to stop. But he's done a fantastic job. And Steve Scalise he's our hero because, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones, and his incredible wife, and she really loves him. You never know about that. I've been with other people. They were doing poorly, and the wife is like looking at a watch. She can't get out of the hospital fast enough. How's he doing? Oh, I don't know. He's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. They're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was a while too. The doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here he is, the picture of strength, right? And he's been a great friend of mine, right? With a family, because of a family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things, to say that were extremely controversial. And between J.D. and Melania and anybody else that heard, please, sir, It's such a beautiful, unifying speech. Please, sir, don't say these things. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to play great. They say, you're right. For this group of people, it's going to play great. You're the only ones I hurt by not, but we had some beauties, didn't we, Melania? She said, sir, calls me sir when she's angry. No. No, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm only kidding, or the press is going to pick that one up loud and clear.
He's so used to lying about who calls him sir that he literally said his own wife calls him
It
sir.
would be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good? But she said it's such a beautiful speech. You can't put things in there that you were going to put in. And I was going to talk about the J6 hostages, but you'll be happy because, it's action, not words that count. And you're going to see a lot of action on the J6 hostages. See a lot of action.
So basically insinuating that his priority here is to release people who've attacked the cops at the Capitol.
Pardons of people that were very, very guilty of very bad crimes, like the Unselect Committee of Political Thugs, where they literally, what they did is they destroyed and deleted all of the information, all of the hearings, practically not a thing left. They deleted all the information on Nancy Pelosi having turned down the offer of 10,000 soldiers. You wouldn't have needed 10,000, you could have had 500, and it would have stopped. Because we may have had 1 million people that day, the people that were there. You don't see any photographs, but we have a lot of great photos. But you don't see those photographs. They don't put them in. They show the people at the Capitol. But I was talking about that. I was going to talk about that. They said, please don't bring that up right now. You can bring it up tomorrow. I said, how about now in front of the I'll bring it up right now. This little time delay is good because we're getting great reviews on the speech. Now watch. They'll take the speech and say, I didn't like it because he left there and he's talked to people. But we're giving you a little more information than we gave upstairs. But no, they pardoned a lot of people. They pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers, absolute murderers, the worst murderers. When you get the death sentence in the United States, you have to be bad, because they don't give it much. And he pardoned almost everybody having a death sentence. And if you went through the crimes that were committed, you wouldn't even believe them. The level of violence, the people that were killed, the innocence of people that were killed, and children killed by these people. And he pardoned them for whatever reason. He spared them, but they didn't spare the people that they killed. And who knows what happens in the future. It's one of the worst because a lot of times they let them out early after that. They say you're going to be in for life, but then all of a sudden they get let out for good behavior and then they go on a rampage. It's one of those little things, right? But I was going to talk about that. But I was really going to talk about the level of, what's going on. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to help a guy like Milley? Why are we doing Milley? He was pardoned. What he said, terrible what he said. Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crying. I never saw the guy not crying. He's always crying. I looked at him. I remember years ago he was actually on my side. And then one day, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment.
This guy just introduced the concept of American expansionism, basically the second era of American imperialism, and threatened to steal the Panama Canal from Panama, which is a sovereign country's territory.
False, like the person that said I tried to strangle a Secret Service agent. That's one of the toughest human beings I think I've ever seen. I actually had a friend saying, please don't change that, sir. You are the coolest sucker in history. Remember, she said, I put my hands around his neck because he wouldn't go to the Capitol. Made up fiction. And I was rebuffed. And the guy on the right is a massive weightlifter. probably stronger than me. Do you think he's stronger than me, honey? You know who I'm talking about. Possibly stronger than me. Slightly younger than me, like, I won't say how many years because I don't want to talk about that, but a lot of years. But I had a friend that said, why are you disputing that story? That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That I would attack a karate champion, get slightly rebuffed, and then throw my arms around a guy with a neck about this big. Even though there are bars, you know, there are bars, you can't really do that anyway. So I wanted to talk about that. But all of that stuff got deleted. And the reason it got deleted is they were all caught in lies. You know, Secret Service testified, and they said it didn't happen. Actually, the two guys were very embarrassed. They're suffering because their friends are saying, did Trump really do that to you? But they gained a whole new respect for me. But it was just make-believe stuff, and there were a lot of make-believe stories made up. So rather than suffer the wrath, like the story with Nancy Pelosi, I offered her 10,000 soldiers. She knows it. She admitted it on tape that her daughter made. She's a videographer or whatever you call her.
The lies never end. Literally none of this is true. Nancy Pelosi was not in charge of the Capitol on January 6th. All of it is just straight nonsense. Anybody who's listening to this and not pushing back on this shit is just completely complicit in the lies that he's
10,000 soldiers, even more. One time I said more, as many as you need, but you needed 400 or 500. If 4 or 5, you 10,000, that would be more than the number of people there by lot. But we offered her 10,000. Think of it, 10,000 soldiers. In other words, J6 wouldn't be J6. There would have been no J6. But she rebuffed them. She didn't like it. No, she didn't like it. Maybe she wanted that to happen, but she's guilty as hell. And now we would have to go through the process because they destroyed all evidence. They deleted everything. There's virtually nothing left. The other fake story and so many other fake stories. And many people came out on our side, and those people now would got to find them. There's nothing left. So that's a criminal offense. If that were a civil case, it would be a criminal offense. If that happened civilly where you did that, it would be a criminal offense. So I decided I'm not going to make this speech complicated. I'm going to make it beautiful. I'm going to make it a unifying speech. And then when they said we have a group of people that are serious Trump fans, I said, this is the time to tell those stories. He knows. So anyway, but seriously, I'd like to, I think it was a tremendous success. I think we're very lucky we put it inside because it is really cold. We just went to...
This is him continuing to try and justify his decision not to hold it outside because he didn't want the optics of having a smaller crowd than Barack Obama.
It's as old as helicopters. You used to get into a stagecoach, now you get into a helicopter. Times change. But it's pretty old custom. And it's a beautiful custom, actually. It's a beautiful custom. I wish we could have had a better relationship. I wish we could have had a better relationship between Republicans and Democrats. I was with Senator Schumer. I said, Chuck, I think it's time we all start getting along a little bit because it doesn't make sense. I mean, we literally never get a Democrat vote. They never get a Republican vote, almost. And although there is a bill coming up very shortly that we have a lot of Democrat votes, right? It's going to be a very beautiful bill. We're going to have a deciding, I would say, within a week or so, I think. And it's going to be a very good bill. You all know what I'm talking about. So I just want to thank you all for being here. You have been our fans from day one. All these people all over. You've been our fans. This has there's never been anything like it. There's never been anything like it. This has been a movement like no movement ever in history for probably any country, let alone this country. You know, if somebody's running for president, and if they go out and they announce they're going to Arizona, they're going to Nevada, they're going to someplace, if you have 200 or 300 people, that would be standard. Ronald Reagan would go out. I mean, outside of the last couple of days where people get a little excited, but even then you have a couple of thousand people. But if you're going to go someplace, any place, any one of the swing states, any one of the other states, I mean, how about the non-swing states? We won Alabama by 48 points. We won Tennessee by massive numbers. Wyoming, we won by numbers that are, nobody's ever seen numbers like that. And, you know, places like California, we did great, but when they send out like 38 million ballots, nobody knows where the hell they're sending them, and then they come pouring back, the whole thing. You know, they passed a law in California that if you work in an election bureau and if you so much as ask for a voter ID, if you say, sir, ma'am, could I please look at your voter ID? They have the right to put you in jail. You're a criminal. Can you believe that? There's only one reason that happens. They want to cheat. So they had it where voter ID wasn't accepted. But now if you even ask for it, this is seriously a bill that was just signed, passed in their legislature, and it was signed. And I think when we get things cleaned up and we get back to a little bit of normalcy, I'm going to ask the Speaker to really get involved, because I think we would have won the state of California, because, you know, if you look at my numbers with Hispanic, we're at 56%. And we were winning. We won the Texas border that had never been won. As the governor said, he's doing a good job, the governor, by the way, of Texas. But as the governor said, it hasn't. Oh, did I get lucky? Did I get lucky? Supposing I said, you know, he's not here, but the governor of Texas has done a terrible job. Wow, look at you. You mean we couldn't get you up in the front row? I tell you. Supposing I said, JD, the governor of Texas, he's not doing his job. You heard what I said. See, I didn't know you were there. I said he's doing a great job. He's doing a phenomenal job. But now you're going to have a partner that's going to work with you, because you didn't have, not only didn't he have a partner, he had people selling the wall, right? We have a fence structure that we worked on, the governor worked on with me. And I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I wanted a nice precast concrete, you know, 40, 50 feet high, like a beautiful, could have been a T-shape, Y-shape. I love construction. I wanted that sucker to go up maybe 50, 60 feet. It would have looked beautiful, a nice Y shape. And they said, the problem is, sir, they climbed that like a rabbit. I said, what do you mean? No way. And they brought some of these guys out. They climbed it like... And the other thing is you hit it with acid and the thing will disintegrate. You know, they have things for concrete. So they needed very hardened steel, very special steel. And then they needed 7,000-pound concrete inside that steel, inside that steel. And then they have a rebar that's the toughest steel made. Very hard to cut. So this is why very little is cut. I mean, it's right. And then they put a anti-climb panel on top. I hated it. I said, it's so unattractive. And I said, why would that work? I don't believe it works. And I went to watch the Border Patrol.
I'll keep this going because this is a newsworthy day, but this is testing my patience to listen to this rambling diatribe of just errant synapses firing and words falling out of Trump's face. This is a tough one. There will be much more judiciousness showed when covering Trump's rambling speeches in the future. But look, it's the inauguration ceremony today, and I've started, so I'll commit. But, like, my God. We
built over 500 miles of wall. That's why we had such...
That's not true. Built 52 miles of wall. That's the real number. 52.
Down on my right, Governor. Had I not looked over there, I'm not speaking right now. You might be speaking here. You want to know the truth? You, JD, have got a lot of great people in this party, but I got very lucky, but we had the best numbers we've ever had. But I bought, you know what happens is when you fill it up, it's like water. You fill it up. Now we have 571 miles of wall. And they would always say, you know, when we renovated a wall, so there'd be like a piece of plywood sitting there for 60 years, or a 2x4 sitting for 60 years on the ground and rotting. Because, you know, and they'll say, you didn't build a new wall. Here we're building 50 feet up in the air, 30 feet sections, 50-foot sections, all steel, all concrete, all everything. And all, by the way, they don't even want me to say this, but what the hell, it doesn't take that long time. They're all wired for all of the equipment. We put wires in everything so they can easily wire for all the different types of equipment. And if there's a doubt, we have to wire. whenever we just look, you just find the wires all over the place up top, so we could just hook it up. We don't have to have wires on the outside, which wouldn't do too well, right? So anyway, so we built an extra 200 miles of wall, and the governor wanted to buy it. He tried to buy it, and they wouldn't sell it to him. He wanted to put it up himself. Could have been done in 3 to 4 weeks, 200 more miles, because when you do it now, they just keep going further out, further out, further out, getting around. So we did an extra 200 miles, and it was all bought, and they announced that they're not going to put it up. And that's when I realized they wanted open borders, and that's when I realized that people are going to come pouring through the wall like nobody's ever seen before, but you've seen it. A lot of you are here because of that. I made it my #1 issue. They all said inflation was the #1 issue. I said I disagree. I think people coming into our country from prisons and from mental institutions is a bigger issue for the people that I know. And I made it my #1. I talked about inflation too, but you know, how many times can you say that an apple has doubled in cost? I'd say it, and I'd hit it hard, but then I go back to the fact that we don't want criminals coming into our country. We don't want the jails of every country in the world virtually being deposited into the United States, and that man had to suffer with it. And he did an unbelievable job. I'll tell you, he was a very popular governor, but now he's like an unbeatable governor because of your border policies. He was fantastic. And he really was. So. Governor Abbott is he's a great man, great leader. And but it did make him did you do it? You didn't do that for politics. You did it because you wanted to do the right thing. But I'll tell you, it sure as hell worked for politics too. It's self-preservation, that's right. But no, because the people are demanding it. The people of Texas are demanding it. The people are demanding it all over. So anyway, so we built it, and they wouldn't let us use it. They wouldn't let the governor use it. And other governors, they wouldn't let him use it. But he was the leader of the pack and did a great job. And then we heard about a month ago that not only wouldn't they let us use it, they were selling it. They were going to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. Now, 5 cents on the dollar then, but today it would cost more than twice as much to build because we bought it like 6 years ago. And it was just sitting on the ground, and that does not do well for the whole thing. But it was just sitting on the ground, and I heard about it, and I called the governor, and I called a lot of people, your attorney general. And here's the story. They were going to buy it, and these are great business people. They were going to buy it.
I'm not going to lie. I zoned out for a moment, and I have no idea what this guy is talking about. You know the game you play on Wikipedia where you have to click one thing to get to another, to get to another, to get to another, and you see how far you can get from your initial option? That is what we're listening to right now. I don't know where Donald Trump is right now, but it is not anywhere close to where
They
he's
were going to buy something for 5 cents, and they were going to sell it to us for a fortune. They were going to make it would be, they'd have it down in Fortune magazine, they'd put it of the deal of the year, okay? You buy something like that. But it was so corrupt and so horrible. And when we told that to the administration, they didn't care. They just kept going forward. They couldn't care less. And they kept going forward. They knew that they were trying to sell it back to us. They would have sold it back to us. You would have ended up buying it. You would have paid probably 50, 60 cents, who knows. But they were going to use it for scrap metal, but then they made a much better deal. They could just buy it and sell it to us for 15, 20 times what they paid. 20 times, think of it, like 20 times what they paid. And we wouldn't let it happen. And the governor with his attorney general, Ken Paxton, they made a fantastic, they're a good lawyer. He's pushed around pretty good by people, right? I said, you got a great attorney general. They should leave him alone. He was with me. But Ken and the governor went to court, and a judge actually became incensed and actually called for an investigation. How could a thing like this happen? So he stopped it. So we're waiting to put that wall up. And now that you have a new president, that wall will go up so fast. The governor will complain, sir. This is Greg Abbott, sir. Please, the wall is going up too fast. Please don't do that. You know the story about winning. No, we're going to win too much. We're winning too much. Please, let's stop. People always love that one. We'll do this with the wall. Governor Abbott calls, "Sir, the wall is going up too fast. We can't take it. We just can't take it." No, I think you'll be very happy if the wall goes up too fast, right? But we'll get that done, and we'll work with you on that. But it was a great decision by a great Texas judge, right? And it was beautiful, beautiful to watch. He stopped them right in their track. I mean, they were literally loading this stuff onto trucks. It was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible. And he wouldn't take it. So I'm so glad I mentioned that they have a really good governor in Texas. And I swear, I didn't know he was here. I swear to you, it sounds like a setup. I didn't know you would end. Did I get lucky? I said the right thing. Because there have been moments when I wasn't so happy with him, you know? But not too many, I can tell you that. So anyway, it's good to see you too, Governor. Great. But I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. I recognize so many of you. It's so crazy.
I've lost patience.
But this has been a long journey. This was a journey that started in 2015, probably started 20 years before that. People used to say, "You're going to run for president? You're going to run?" And I always said, no.
All right. So here's the deal. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I know that this, for the vast majority of us watching right now, is not what we wanted to be doing on January 20th, 2025. But I do appreciate you tuning in. I hope that there will be the same degree of focus over the next 4 years. I hope that it's much more. We have a lot of work to do in terms of reaching a lot of disaffected people in this country, people who've become disenchanted with the Democratic Party, people who've fallen victim to a lot of the manipulation and lies being perpetuated by the Republican Party and right-wing media. So we have, again, a lot of work to do. I'm here because I'm perfectly willing to be in this fight over the next 4 years, willing to do the hard work of persuasion in whatever form that takes, and appreciate you tuning in here and launching this effort with me as we head into what will be a period of, I think, a lot of frustration and difficulty, but it's going to take a lot of people working together to get through this thing. So again, appreciate you all tuning in. I do not have the stomach to continue hosting this rambling diatribe, but I'm sure that there will be no lack of rambling diatribes moving forward. So if there's any desire to continue watching this stuff, you are in luck, because this nonsense is going to happen for the next 4 years here. Okay, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it, and as soon as we have some newsworthy event to live stream next, I'll come back to do a live stream. For those who are watching right now, if you want to follow along and support this channel, support progressive media more broadly, please make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, to subscribe, if you're watching on Twitch, to follow, and if you're watching on Facebook, to follow as well. So I appreciate, again, everybody tuning in, taking time out of your day to day, and listening to my take on things as we enter this period of Donald Trump's second term. So thank you again. I'll talk to you all soon.